Hannah's just said something quite nicely, thinking about future, thinking about tech, thinking about some really big futuristic kind of stuff. I'm going to maybe bring us down a little bit back to something that is very grassroots, very everyday, and that's looking at health and looking at. I'll kind of walk us through a little bit of where we've come from in healthcare, where we are at the moment, and what there is in terms of that future around digital health, around health technology, mobile health. So vulnerability is the greatest kind of courage. So I'm going to just kind of present a little bit off the cuff here. No PowerPoints for me, because I think we just had a conversation here. Let's set a bit of context around what it means to be using, more, more digital health, more health technology there. So if we think about the past in terms of health, what we've really found is the doctor in the ivory tower, the all-knowing, the all. I went to med school. I got through the work hardening program. It is a medical internship, and so I have the ability to tell you what's going on with your body. And I think we've really moved away from that model at present because of the advent of Dr. Google. So that paternalistic model was very, very much about maintaining that doctors on one side or medical professionals on one side and the patient at the other side, and certainly not considering that patient is actually a customer and a consumer, and the biggest things that usually make a change in health is being able to facilitate behaviour change and being able to get someone to buy into a treatment program as such. So if we're looking certainly at broader aspects of health, if we're going to actually make change to our health expenditure to population health, well, it has to be taking our knowledge out of the clinic and actually putting it into people's lives. So my favourite joke is what's the difference between God and a surgeon?
God doesn't think he's a surgeon.
God doesn't think he's a surgeon. And I tell that to my surgeon friends. So I'm a physio by profession, so I get to kind of hang out with lots of different spheres of medical people. So no, God doesn't think he's a surgeon. And the unfortunate thing for health, I think for the position of health professionals is that they do have to be all-knowing, all-powerful, because we go to them, we kind of put our lives in front of them and say, help me. Give me the answers to what's going on because it's not working for me. So there was a really great TED talk on that just recently. If you're a baseball player and you hit 6 out of 10 in your career, 6 out of 10 balls, you are world class. Like you are bomb. As a doctor, as a medical professional, you've got to hit 10 out of 10, and if you don't, people die. That's actually a really good part of. That's an enormous stress for a clinician. And there's the medical legal implications of that, as much as there is the personal stress, the personal pressure, and the fact very often the system doesn't support those medical professionals. So, and yeah, there's an area for tech to make a difference. So if we think now that we've got, that Dr. Google exists, so I find a lot of the time what I'm doing in my clinic is that my patients are coming to me and saying, now I think I've got this thing because I went and I Googled it and I've got this and these symptoms and whatever. So a lot of the time what I'm finding is I'm disproving their hypothesis more so than being able, than going from, what are your symptoms, how's it behaved, what have you done, blah, blah, blah. They're already coming in with knowledge, and that's a really powerful and really important thing. So what we've actually sort of broken down that ivory tower of I'm the doctor with the knowledge versus I'm the patient that is told what to do. We're getting that big crossover of the informed patient. I think the key around that now is, can we actually formalise that and actually use that information in a better way to allow our health professionals to do a better job, to allow those patients, those customers to be better serviced. So that's a bit about the past. So I think if we look at where we are now, there's lots of people making noise in digital health. So digital health is sort of one sphere, an attempt to put together all the different areas in health innovation that are happening. So digital health encompasses things like your mobile tracking apps, your mobile health stuff, your tracking apps, your gadgets. There's a thing called Fitbit, so basically, things that will quantify yourself. So tell you how many steps you've walked, how much sleep you've had, whatever. So as a tracking device, and from that, there's then moving into the other gadgets, which are things like monitoring blood glucose on the smartphone, and all sorts of things that are very medical, but can we actually make them be something that people can actually do themselves at home? And that, even though that movement is happening now, even though there's lots of noise in that space, the orchestra's not playing to it. There's no symphony around that, but there is movement. There is people saying, what's going to happen. I mean, there's a competition out there called the Tripod X Prize, and they've offered $1 million for the person that can create, or the team that can create a handheld small gadget that can monitor a number of diseases and produce at a small price, so it's accessible to the population. So there's stuff happening in this space at the moment, but it's not it's not coordinated. So obviously in terms of location, Silicon Valley is leading that charge because that's how things tend to work in the tech space. There's a lot more, obviously America has a lot more funding, and there's a bit of a bubble around that at the moment of let's throw this money at health. As a clinician, my perspective on that would be, sure, innovation is great, but you've got to show me that it's going to make my job a lot easier and it's going to have a measurable outcome for that patient. Because if it doesn't have those two things, we're not truly innovating in the space that we need. In terms of what I'd like to think about for the future in terms of health is how can we use technology to facilitate what the clinician actually turned up at medical school to do, which was to care for people. Because that clinician doesn't appreciate and like the 5-minute consultation any more than the customer does. So, particularly around using the tracking apps, using the gadgets, the devices, formalising the online information, how can we actually get information to patients? It actually allows that that human, that personal interaction to actually have a lot more meaning. Because for a lot of times people think that facilitating behaviour change, often the thing that will cement that from a neurobiological perspective as much as anything is connection and empathy. If you can feel felt, if you can feel heard, and you can be given a place, a thing to do, a place to go, something to change, that actually makes an enormous difference for health. And again, if we come back to the idea that we need to get this information out of the clinic into people's lives, it's being able to use tech to facilitate that, that human change that I think is a really important and strong part of where we can use the technology. Some of the other parts of digital health that I didn't mention are, if we particularly think about behaviour change, is gamification. So actually, how can we use the inherent sort of novelty value and interest, whatever, of actually having games to facilitate people doing things. So there's a couple that there's one for cancer recovery. These are people kids that, and mostly it's that one is particularly aimed at kids. There's also a market then for older adults in care homes of how can they actually be more engaged rather than just sitting. There's one that's currently in the incubator program at the moment, which is called Super Better. And really it's just about small, little lifestyle changes that can be made that, it's a game, you go on quests, you do these little power-ups, but it's about, it's a reminder. I have it on my iPad and it tells me to, go for a 5-minute walk or, have a positive thought. Or something that's just, little tiny things that's just, again, reminding people that to get out of some of those habits. So health innovation, if we're still in the present, innovating in healthcare, it's kind of the last bastion of not innovating because it's a difficult behemoth challenge. The health system itself, having worked in public health, I know that I get in there in the morning and there's here's your list of 40 patients and you open the curtain, we're working surgical wards, open the curtain, are you breathing, are you walking, are you, can you cough? That's what we do in physios. post-surgical. If you could do that, that was as much of an interaction you had to have with that patient. But you didn't then know, why did they get to be in hospital? What are their challenges when they go home? What are the things that are going to stop them coming back? So again, there's these massive institutionalised problems within healthcare. Any innovation that we do, any stuff that we're currently working on, needs to be able to go and fit into that system. So health has got a whole lot of juicy, like really juicy, cool questions. And it's about being able to get the people with the problems, which is our clinicians, who will know what's going on there, but how do we actually create meaningful solutions based on those current challenges. So you need the people with the domain knowledge, but you also need the people that can make it happen. And I think from a health professional perspective, being able to use technology as a clinician, if you're able to develop your own ideas and iterate them through a business model, that's actually a way of leveraging that enormous amount of knowledge that you actually have to do a far bigger and broader job in terms of, we went to medical school or physio school or whatever because we cared about people. I love the one-on-one interaction. I love that my patients come into me and they hobble on in and they waltz on out and they think I'm some kind of magic brain body hacker. But there's some science in that. But the one-on-one interaction, you think, well, there's billions of other people, not just in my country, but can we actually have something that's globally relevant? And that's where there is the potential within technology. That's a grand utopian vision, really. But the potential is there. And the potential is about being able to bring together the people that have those ideas and the ability to make that change and that are kind of willing to go there. It's not an easy space to work within. If we think, that's I guess moving in towards thinking about the future and the future in health. I'm not sure how many of you have come across the 3D printer, the idea of 3D printer. Well, it might be too long in the future when you can actually biologically print your own ear or your own kidney or whatever like that. Something like that will absolutely change the way that we approach services around transplants, around whatever. They're things that seemed insurmountable. Someone a kid that can't get a kidney, there's not a donor match. Well, can you print one themselves?
There's actually a guy recently had 3/4 of his skull replaced using a 3D printer.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's really quite incredible. You can also 3D print a chocolate though. That's always.
You actually have a chocolate skull.
That was like that first session that we did this morning with storytelling. That was a little whacked, but the other future thing is personalised medicine. So we'll look at the medical system. We're trying to fit people to averages, fit people into a diagnosis, fit people into a condition, but we are all an individual. We all interact. Drug interactions are completely different for different people. People have under the radar kind of disease risks, things like that. So the ability that we have now to access genetic testing, like DNA testing. So you can go to 23andMe and you can order that for $100. You can come back and it's a little bit like social networking for genetics because you get your DNA results back. And then you can match up with whoever might have similar genes or some similar things around that. Now, people have been saying that that's literally will be the new. We Google the future around health with the actual ability to personalise that medicine. Now, again, the gap there is the fact that the technology is there, but we don't know how to integrate it and use it in clinical practice. So that's always the gaping chasm. Is that there's the tech and there's innovation and there's this rad stuff happening here, and then there's I just got to see this patient, I just got to get something done. What do they need now? So and that's always the thing is that as a health professional, I remember the days when I used to be seeing 17 patients a day, and it's like what's the least what's my minimum viable product in treatment today? What can I do that will get some result? Because as a clinician as well, I'm absolutely exhausted by that whole workload. So personalised medicine is huge. Quantified self. So we talked about the tracking, but actually knowing, it's not going to appeal to everyone. So everyone wants to know. But again, if we're going to be able to, to track, not just physiological variables, but behaviour. You can be able to then take your month's printout of what you've done that month to your doctor. So that even goes into into big data collection and looking at, can we at an early stage be able to detect disease patterns. We also have developing health booths. I think this is an American initiative that you can have go into the little booth and you've got a doctor on Skype and you tell them your story, and there's a lot of doctor-patient interactions don't need a whole lot of hands-on. Like in the little booth, they've got a blood pressure monitor and a cuff and whatever, and get the basics. And if someone just needs a prescription or needs whatever, it's a way of, that's looking at a different service delivery model based on what we can already do. But again, I come back to all of that is about being able to facilitate the doctor-patient, as much as we can, the doctor-patient interaction, the thing that is actually going to make something change in that person to make better decisions. And that the customer is not just the end user in the patient, the customer for any innovation in health has to also be the clinician, because they have to be able to implement that service and and significantly make their life easier.
So I was going to say, is the words like customer don't even seem to really describe the relationship.
Oh, absolutely. But we think about it, that patients are so much more informed, and why do we not think of them as customers? And I've sort of applied my mind to, from a business thinking, that what is our product in healthcare? What am I selling? And this is what's hard. What we're selling is feeling. Yes, someone needs an operation, someone needs an antibiotic, somebody needs something. They also need to feel that someone's taking care of them, someone's got this. Like, man, I got this. It's under control. So if we can use technology, and there's amazing stuff, the total future stuff that's out there to be able to facilitate that on a scale, in a scalable model, over broad stuff, like utopian vision yet again. That's going to be what will actually make a difference in health. So, okay, so good, because I can do a big reveal now. Screen up. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so I'm so not the dude in this space, right? But my job, that I see as my job here, is to bring the dudes together. So we formed, so I've got two co-founders in this project. So it's called Health Innovate. That should be .com, sorry. So we just do a little bit of odd bits of blogging around that. Twitter, and so for anyone that wants to come, hang out, do whatever, I've actually put on Meetup just this morning, so it's not formally launched, Health Tech Canberra. So we've got 40 members for that in Sydney, and basically, we get together and someone presents and we talk about things, and but again, it's about getting the people in the same space. So we're looking for the early adopters. So who is already interested? Who has already got some energy around this? Who can contribute to this? Because looking at down the track, can we run some hack days, some educational events, particularly for if a health professionals learn how to treat a patient, they actually know how to run a startup. It's exactly the same process. Yes.
Are you missing an L?
Yes, that would be Heath Innovators. That's well spotted. It was a trick, you see. So that's really what we're looking at the moment. Is can we create some community around this? Can we get some momentum? And down the track, can we run? We can run. Educational products for health professionals. So the guys at the coal front, bring them together. With the developers, with the tech dudes, with the entrepreneurs, and even with funding sources, and then can we make change happen?
I'd say, it's really important to keep consumers involved as well, because
I absolutely agree.
But I think with health, what we really need to do is actually keep people away from needing to go to clinicians, needing to go to hospitals, and most health is actually socially determined, transport, how people live, housing, all that sort of
stuff. I totally agree, and sometimes I think I'm not treating a patient's pain, I'm treating their life situation.
Yeah.
And that's is a lot of what is such a challenge in this. And health is not the absence of an acute disease. Health, wellness is a huge thing. And like, I guess my own personal philosophy is, can we nail some of the basics, like, treating patients as customers? And then can we think of the gas preventative health? Can we actually do exactly what you're saying? Can we get people to not need the acute care services? Because that's where we'll save money as well.
Because I think at the moment, health at the very high tech end, like really complex surgery, uses technology really well.
Totally.
But where it's missing, where technology is not being used, is people who come to see you, then they go out for a month and don't do what they should do.
That's exactly right. Makes a really valid point there, and that's exactly the thing is, if we're doing robotic surgery, whatever, so they nailed it, they've got it. But what needed to happen back here? What do we need to facilitate so that surgery never had to happen? Why we didn't need to have the cures for cancer or the drug development, and that's a bit of a can of worms there, but that what could we have done here that meant that this didn't happen?
And not just that, but increasingly we're going to have a lot of older people who are going to have multiple conditions. And if they're well managed and people live good lifestyles, they'll still need health interventions, but they'll be able to live much better, much
That's
more.
right. And there's lots of research around the key things that can prevent those comorbidities. So how can you a few birds with one stone? Is there any other questions? Anything that spark people? Yes.
How will the health professional consumer such patient relationship change?
How will it change? Through the use of tech. There's talk about being able to, even the use of social media, interacting with your health professional. I think a lot of the key is getting out of the ivory tower, is actually making it accessible. And what I try and do with my patients particularly is not just educate them about the disease or the physiological stuff, but actually educate them around why do I look at what I look at? Why do I care about their hip range of motion? Why do I get them to self-test and self-monitor their neck range of motion? Just things like that. So if we can have some ways of using tech to facilitate those relationships, then again that breeds that on my side, on my team interaction. Guys, thank you so much for being around. Stick around for the next session because I've heard it was tremendous.